Well, good evening, everybody, and it's great to see so many people here this evening. The meeting is being live streamed, so people can watch it at home. The format of the meeting has been agreed by the two candidates. We're here to facilitate the meeting, and they've agreed that they will each speak for 5 minutes, after which there will be questions, and they will each have a minute to answer any questions put forward. Questions should be as concise as possible. We're here to hear the views of the candidates and not the questionnaires. I'll only accept questions that can be answered by both candidates. So it can't be addressed singly to one. We've had apologies from the Rector, Helen Gunton, who couldn't be here this evening, and it's a wonderful opportunity to welcome Darren Cleworth, who will be the timekeeper this evening. Darren will be our new parish secretary from June the 13th, which is a week on Monday. He's actually working for us on the election as an election officer for the parish. So a very warm welcome to Darren. So we tossed a coin just before we came on stage, and Mark is going to speak first.
Good evening. My name is Mark Labby, and I'm standing for Connétable of Grouville. The parishioners of Grouville have agreed with me on the campaign trail this week and strengthened my resolve on many topics. I have surveyed them on 8 of my most important subjects. The most passionate and vehement replies have reinforced my opinion of the terrible wasting of taxpayers' money that has occurred in recent years. The hospital project, which I remember being introduced at least 20 years ago, has been a fiasco for all of those 2 decades, but in the last 4 years has become nothing less than a betrayal of the trust that the electorate and the taxpayer has given the states. Other issues surround the planning process. The states have to decide, preferably without the use of countless UK consultants, whether to prevent our green and beautiful parish and countryside from being overdeveloped. I will resist any greenfield developments in Grouville. If we yield even one greenfield site, the momentum will begin. Parishioners are also concerned about the housing situation. The property prices have soared in recent years beyond the reach of the next generation of islanders. Young people who have been educated here, gone away and studied and want to bring their knowledge and skills back to the island are unable to start out on their own. This generation are leaving or choosing not to return. Rental prices are forcing many others away too and adding to the chronic shortage of staff in all sectors. The states cannot interfere in the property market, but it must stop people from buying properties as investments instead of homes. We must take the heat out of the housing rental market, otherwise the businesses around the island will simply leave. Hotels are closing, and the amenities that we have enjoyed that rely on tourism to boost their income will disappear too. Another view is to introduce some form of population control, and this surely must be put in place now. These subjects have been expressed most passionately on the doorstep this week, and I endorse their passions. In the parish itself, I will strive to set up a more joined-up green lane system to enable walkers, cyclists and families to enjoy the countryside in relative safety. If we, as a parish, are to reinforce our rural status, this is one of the ways that this can be achieved. During lockdowns, this was emphasised by the amazing number of walkers out exercising in our lanes. I will also campaign for us to have more sports facilities and play areas for preschool children, which are sadly lacking in the east of the island. Parents have told me of the mileage they have to take their children to activities and play areas, which are mostly situated the other side of the tunnel. I will ensure that our parish sets an example to all by becoming carbon neutral as quickly as is feasibly possible. Electric equipment is more expensive than its carbon-creating alternatives, so this must be done in a way that limits the impact to the ratepayer. Teamwork is at the heart of parish life. Not only are we served by an excellent small team of professionals, but a large number of volunteers. I have known most of them for a long time, as I have been one of them for over 31 years. And it is vital that the Connétable makes all of these individuals feel appreciated and welcome within our tremendous team. I have been a chairperson and am still the Honorary Treasurer of the Battle of Flowers, Honorary Treasurer and Land Manager of the Tenors of the Grouville Common. You may have seen me mowing the grass there. I have also been the Managing Director of my own company since 1990, so I believe that all these roles, and many more besides over 4 decades of voluntary service, gives me a greater understanding and ability to communicate with all age groups in our community. My ethos in life has always been, the more you put into life, the more you get out. So I aim to put everything into the role of Connétable to ensure that the parishioners can get more out. I have the honour of being the driver of the wonderful Grouville Battle of Flowers float every year, and this requires a safe and steady pair of hands. And I am hoping that I can provide the same safe hands for the Parish of Grouville over the next 4 years, and some basic common sense in the States. So please vote for me, Mark Labby.
Thank you, Mark. Sarah.
Hello, I'm Sarah Howard, standing as your Connétable for Grouville. It's good to see so many familiar faces around here tonight. Walking around the parish talking to you has been extremely beneficial, and I'll continue to do this until the 22nd of June. If successful in my campaign, I will be visible and accessible as Connétable. As my red banners have enlivened this election, I continue the theme tonight with my red dress. It is the Grouville colours after all. So my decision to stand in this election came from 3 years' work in our Grouville community, invigorating historic democratic processes through parish assemblies. With attendances of more than 200 parishioners, the most recent successful requête contributed to amendments to the Island Bridging Plan, in particular to preserving Grouville's important wetlands. That requête impassioned me to stand, creating this contested election, allowing your voice to be heard within our parish community in our island. I describe my business style as professional, caring leadership. As a chartered accountant, I've led large teams. I've been responsible for reporting, planning, and financial modelling on complex revenue and capital projects of up to £500 million. In the last 3 years, I've been an executive leadership coach, supporting women in senior leadership roles involved in innovative change, both in Jersey and London. With a passion for continual personal and professional development, I have qualifications and experience managing and moderating responses to change. I intend to be a Connétable for the whole parish, listening to all voices. And in the remainder of the speech, I will reflect your collective voice through my campaign aims. I hear you do want to participate in specialised working groups and larger parish assembly discussions. You want to stop the exodus of younger people. I hear you want to keep Grouville rural. It's what makes it special. That you want to preserve and protect the parish wetlands through innovative carbon offset schemes. But I also hear that if possible, you want homes for our young people to get onto the important housing ladder. With schemes like shared equity ownership, tried and tested in Trinity, we may be able to encourage our younger professional families back to the island. We need to look after the Jersey person. You want a population policy that does this, but you don't want to prevent economic growth. Linked into this, you want skills developed on island, possibly through an island-led workforce plan. making Jersey self-sufficient, led by Jersey people. You're concerned about the looming food and cost of living crises. We must protect and enhance our agricultural land and our seabed, support our successful and innovative farmers and fishermen, experiment with soil and seabed revitalisation. I hear you supporting the living wage, but some businesses with small profit margins may need subsidies or tax breaks to achieve this. A few of you talk about electricity supply and the need to reduce dependence on Électricité de France through tidal power. Many older people feel forgotten about, and the disabled disenfranchised. We must support each other through more community gatherings, book and puzzle swaps, petanque and tai chi. You want efficient and effective parish and government expenditure. You want comparison of rates with other parishes. The affordability of a £200 million growth in public expenditure is of concern. Everyone mentioned road safety, the speed of vehicles on the coast road, accident black spots at Fovett Crossroads, that minor roads are not safe for wheelchair users, walkers and cyclists. You want more cycle tracks and safer routes to schools, work and shops. Parking and lighting in Gorey continues to be a problem, and you want safe access to your homes. Through learning and growing together, we will progress through times of crises. We will thrive by harnessing the broad range of skills within the parish.
Sorry, that's the 5 minutes up, I'm afraid, and I have to be strict.
Okay,
Apologies.
thank you.
That brings us to questions. I will take questions from the floor. I should have explained at the outset that neither of the candidates are standing. It's not through disrespect, it's just a lot better for the microphones, so that's why they are remaining seating. So I'll now take the first question. Does somebody have a question? It's important you speak through the microphone because obviously the meeting is being live streamed. Chris Parlett.
Thank you, Connétable. Both of the candidates have spoken about housing and the housing crisis that we find ourselves in. I'd like to know if the candidates have any idea where we could put some houses in Grouville for our share of the young people of the island.
Am I answering?
I think Sarah's first we agreed, and then you'll be the next question. Sarah.
Thank you for the question, and yeah, I agree. Housing is the biggest issue that everyone's talking about, and I see the issue in a short, medium, and long term. It's complex and it's difficult. We've got vacant houses that do need to be filled. We probably don't know how many houses we need across the island because we don't have a population policy. We do have census results out now. But we definitely need, so in the short term, we need to be filling vacant properties. We need to be understanding why they're vacant. We need to be, then we need to be looking at how many houses we really do need and whether, and of what type. And that's going to be a medium term with a population policy to support that.
Thank you. Mark?
Yes, thank you, Chris. Amused by the fact that you tapped the microphone. You're an audio engineer. Yes, I believe that there are houses out there that we could, housing developments we could be doing. I still believe that there are brownfield sites in the parish. I've identified a few. I've been to see them. Some of them may not be applicable, but there are rotting greenhouses out there that are rat runs and full of brambles. The Guernseymen did a much better job on our sister island. Their island was covered in glass houses, and they managed to get rid of most of them now because they allowed the owners to develop a proportion of the land area that they had, as long as it was near services. Now, we could do the same. I also believe that the states have a massive portfolio of properties that they should be releasing for our next generations. There are many other things that we could be doing. We need to innovate in this department because Jersey is used to innovation, and we need to get together and sort this out between everybody concerned.
Thank you. The next questioner, please. Don Eddy, you'll answer this question first, Mark,
Certainly.
please.
Thank you.
Good evening. Engaging with young people in our parish is of great importance. If we look at the average age of the audience tonight, I would say we're between 60 and 70.
Nice.
Average,
Hello.
I said average. How has your experience enabled you to engage and develop ideas with young people in the parish?
Me first?
Yes, please.
I'm very honoured to say that I'm a member of the Grouville Battle of Flowers Association, and we have a very active junior section. In fact, I would say without the junior section, there wouldn't be a senior section because they all come through the juniors. And we encourage, we teach, we do everything that we possibly can to get these children to look at the physical aspects of building, electricity, all welding work. We teach them how to weld, all sorts of different skills that we can teach them in the shed. And it's a wonderful facility that we now have thanks to the parish. And so that's the way in which I've engaged with the younger people for, well, I was on my first float when I was 6, so do the math.
Thank you. Sarah.
So I haven't directly had any engagement with young people within the parish, but I have led within my management experience training and development programs for bringing younger people on in their personal professional development, and through this campaign I understand the importance of using social media, of engaging with young people on the doorstep to encourage them into voting and into the election. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Next questioner, please. Ian Mitchell.
Mr. Constable, thank you very much. The Jersey Electricity Company have endorsed a campaign for the change of use of agricultural land to place solar panels on quite a large area of the island. I want to know what is your view about the change of use from the land, agriculture, land coming out of agriculture and being put to these sort of uses?
Sarah, let's do first.
So we are heading globally into food crisis, and we need to ensure that we are sustainable in our own production of food. Understanding the need for the JEC to diversify from EDF, and I know that you're using solar panels on buildings, but I wouldn't support solar panels being used on agricultural fields. It's going to be fundamentally important in the next number of decades.
Mark.
Just to answer your question, one thing I am absolutely astounded by, I was in an almost brand new estate this afternoon with beautiful, huge, large, south-facing roofs. Now, please tell me, somebody here, why aren't those roofs covered in solar panels? Because it just doesn't make any sense. Every new development in the island should be having that in mind when they go through the planning process. We have to start being more sustainable. I have looked at the coatees, Ian, which I'm sure will one day not be particularly profitable. You know, we can look at it then, but surely they're of great use at the moment. They're you know, the premium crop of the Jersey Royal comes out early, and it's well known throughout the world. But no, please, can the planning department insist on every single south-facing area being covered in solar panels? The Co-op have done it, and it's a fantastic job, and they're doing really well with it. Let's do that, shall we?
Question at the back, Bernard. Right at the very back.
Hello. I've lost my voice, so I don't know if this is going to work. Is it okay? So I'm not in that 60 to 70 bracket, and I'm representing young families in the parish. So inevitably, there will be more houses built in the parish. And so how will the role of the Connétable and the parish support the already full school, and how will we accommodate more children within the education system when parish schools, both primary and secondary, are overcrowded already? Thank you.
I'll just repeat the question because I appreciate your voice. No, that's okay, but I think you were asking, our parish school is full, the secondary school is also full. What would the potential constable do about that situation? So you first, Mark? Is it me? I think it's Mark.
Thank you, Marina. I could not believe, and I'm sure Sarah will back me up here, why those fields were asked. They said they were going to put houses on the fields near the school because it was a nice walk in to Grouville School. Am I right? Am I right in saying that? Would you agree with that? But surely there's no places at the school, so they've had to end up getting in their car, having to drive halfway across the island to go to a school place. So more petrol, more diesel being burnt. This is exactly my point. How can we get those places? Grouville School doesn't have a lot of area left to expand in. It has a garden that I think the Tenors helped to create not so long ago. But surely you don't want to dig all that up. We have to have a major revamp of all the schooling situations throughout the parishes in the island, because I believe St Martin's has only got one entrance class in the bottom of the school. I mean, why didn't they have more than that to help? We have a serious problem here, and I don't know if anybody knows, but sorry.
Sarah? Sarah?
So, in my view, we need to work out, we need to take a step back here. We need to work out how many people this island can hold, you know, and then, you know, in terms of the infrastructure required, and that, you know, schooling, water, police, you know, and so, you know, that's what needs to happen. We need a population policy, and, you know, we need to decide how many inhabitants we think we can sustain comfortably in this island, and work our way back from that. I agree with you. You know, we clearly don't have the infrastructure, the school infrastructure to support more young families within the parish.
Thank you. Question here down at the front, Bernard.
He doesn't need a microphone, Mr. Connétable.
Good evening. I read both your manifestos, and I think you both have an understanding of budgeting and projections. But there's more to being a Connétable than just that. So could you both tell me, please, what you have done to have served the parish in the past?
Is this me?
I think it's you first, Sarah.
Okay. So I had, until 3 years ago, I was working intensively in the civil service, and so then in 2019, when I had capacity, I then started to offer my services, my skill set, to the parish, and I started with a climate emergency proposition, and prepared a strategy for the parish, which John has been implementing slowly and has been picked up by the Connétable of St John. So it's spreading. One of the themes of it was Constable's collaborations. In addition to that, we have been working on safer through that strategy, green lanes, joining up green lanes. And working to persuade the parish to start to develop more of those. Sorry. Got lots more to say.
Mark.
In February 1978, the Gory village was flooded. My father and I took our pump down and pumped it out. That's where I started my life. 1987, I spent 3 days cutting trees after the big storm to clear the top roads behind La Prée Manor and all the way down to the Seymour pub. Don't ask me why I did that. Yes, I've been a chairman of the Battle of Flowers. I'm still their treasurer. I work for the land management of the Gorey Common in conjunction with Pierre Songo. I have done many things over many years, but in the municipality, I've been a roads inspector for nearly 32 years. It'll be 32 years in September. So, and I've also been a deputy registrar with my cousin Andrew. A bit.
Thank you. I saw Ted Egred, Bernard, and then Adrian Derman. I think you put your hand up next.
Listening to you're both, like everybody else, are concerned with a growing population and where we're going to house them. You will not only be representing your parish when you go in, but your vote's going to carry for the island. How will you approach stopping people coming to our island? Who are you going to stop to say, sorry, we're full up, the door is closed? How have you envisaged putting a proposition forward to control the population? Thank you.
It's Mark.
Is it?
I think.
It's me?
Yeah.
Do you know, I've been on the doorstep this week, Ted. I've been spoken to, and that question has become a very complex one. The housing prices and rental prices are actually doing that job for us right now, because so many people are leaving. There were 2 people that were actually moving house when I turned up in one near Claude La Roque. They are literally going. So how would I do it? I like the Canadian example, a population register that actually tells the whole island who's here and why. But once they get into the island, once they're allowed into the island, they should be allowed to live where they want so that the landlords and so on are not going to prey upon them. They should be allowed to work where they want. If they're given access to Jersey on that register, they must be allowed to do as they please when they please. But we must know who and where they are.
Thank you. Sarah.
Well, I think he's talking about actually in the States Chamber. How would you take that and be active within creating a population policy within the States Chamber? Yeah. So as Connétable, it's important to represent the voice of the community. So you need to hear, what your views are on a population policy, and both sides of it, all sides of it. And we'll shape that. We'll shape that together, and I will take that and represent your voice in the States Chamber, and from that, a population proposition can be shaped by the States Chamber, representing your views, taking your voice into account.
Thank you. There was a question down here. That gentleman had his hand up, Adrian Dermot, with a green top.
The modern word for renewables is unreliables. If you have a solar panel, it doesn't work in the dark and it doesn't work in the winter. If you have a windmill, it doesn't work when the wind doesn't blow, and it doesn't work when the wind blows too hard. So you have to have another engine. It's a bit like having a car with 2 engines, so you have to have a backup. In the UK, there's been massive subsidies on gas-powered generation, which haven't been talked about. All that's been talked about was lots of windmills. The best place for windmills is on Dutch postcards. What I would like you to say is that you won't spend my taxpayers' money solving the world's energy problems in the same way that the British government has created a complete disaster of energy policy. And I would like you to speculate the fact that with your different backgrounds, you are not technically competent to create an energy policy. And I don't want you to spend my money on it. So I'd like you to reflect on that. Thank you.
Is that you first, Sarah?
I don't know. Is it me first?
I think it's you first. Yep.
It's me first. Okay. So Jersey has been very fortunate. The procurement, excellent procurement undertaken by the JEC, taking very good value electricity from France, from EDF. You know, that's obviously going to change. That's obviously going to change. The price of that's going to change fairly soon. It would be ideal for the island to become sustainable and start to diversify. So I have heard parishioners saying that we should be looking at our tidal, you know, in and out, the energy that could create, and wind. So no, I am not an expert of that kind at all, but we do need to be looking to be more sustainable.
So why are you proposing...
Sorry, sorry, Adrian, we need Mark to answer the question now.
I bought an electric car 6 years ago, and I think it was the best thing I ever bought. But I've got to say, I don't believe the future is in battery-powered things. I believe that we're on the verge soon of acquiring a hydrogen power unit, and I think that is the future. And I think that is coming from private industry, hopefully not government. When it comes, we've already spoken about solar panels. You're right, of course. I actually got a quote for putting solar panels on my garage, and they said, well, they're not very good in the winter because obviously the sun is low, etc., etc. So I still think solar panels have their use because you're selling the product to the electricity company, and they're giving you back the unit at 6 pence per unit higher, which is a bit odd. But yes, I would not support any way in which the government would be investing in that, because I think private industry already is.
Thank you. Can I have a further question? The lady down here in the middle.
I'm speaking for the pensioners of the island, not just of Grouville. My husband and I worked for the States for over 35 years. I now get a proportion of my husband's pension. I get my public employees' pension and my old age pension, no other income. I now pay almost a third of that to the income tax department every month. And I just feel that, you know, this is not fair. I paid taxes all through my working life. You're paying tax again. And I have to pay 27% in order to get an allowance. Do they think this is fair? And can you justify it?
I think that's you first.
I'm always been worried about this, and I'm coming up to retirement age fairly soon. I know I don't look it. But why are you getting a tax break on your pension contributions when you're working and you're able to pay them? I know why, because it was originally introduced to encourage people to take out private pensions. But then, at the end of your life, you're having to pay tax when you're not working. It doesn't make sense to me. It would need a major revamp of this system, a major revamp of the tax system, and a whole generation of people would have to make arrangements with the tax department to vary their contributions. But I completely concur. Why are you paying so much tax when you're retired? Doesn't make sense.
Sarah?
I concur, thank you. The taxation system needs looking at, especially in the rising costs and rising inflation and the rate it's going. There are going to be a lot of people under a lot of pressure, and this is just one example of an area that could be looked at to alleviate pressure on cost of living.
Even if it was reduced for pension.
Yeah.
Thank you. Another question? The lady down here in the front.
So we've had quite a lot of politicians over the last few years promise us that they're going to do lots of things about the same problems, about the hospital, about housing, about schooling, about taxation. Every time an election comes round, that's what we're promised. What I'd like to know is, as a constable, how would you see your working day? So, for instance, if you are going to do something about taxation, if you had a little list, I mean, your job is wide-reaching. It's going to be difficult to fit in all these promises. How would you go about, say, campaigning or changing taxation? What would be your role there? If you want to build a new playground in Grouville so that the young people can do it, how are you going to do that? I actually want to see some action from the people I elect. So I want to know what would be a typical action of yours.
Sarah, I think that's you first.
Okay, thank you for the question. I am in favour of collaborative decision making. So I want to hear. I'd have small specialised working groups on whatever the issue is that of the moment that needs to be addressed and dealt with. So anybody that's interested, I would hear their viewpoints, and then from that, we would put together a plan and to implement work out the costings and how that would be implemented over time. Constantly working with that same group, feeding backwards and forwards. When we're in these times of crises and difficulties, we need to be working together in a collaborative way. So collaboration is the thing that I'm offering. So it's not an issue that I'm taking off and I'll disappear and it doesn't happen. We will work together.
Thank you.
And in the same, sorry, Bruce, and in the same way, we have a marvellous team, an extremely experienced team of procureurs in the parish, and we have a roads committee to advise the Connétable, and working with them and all of those concerned with the various issues, like, for example, the play park. For example, the Sandy Park is owned by the Chef Tenors, but it's administered by the infrastructure department. We need to change that. It needs to be upgraded. Yes, we need to talk to all of those who are actually directly attributable to that problem, and I think that helps when we then go with our deputies, get together with the deputies that will be getting all three of them if necessary, and go to the various authorities and get some activities on these particular issues.
A further question. Bruce Willing?
As the candidates for Connétable, what three things would you like to achieve in your first year in office?
Thank you. Mark, I think it's you this time.
In the first year, I would certainly, in conjunction with the Roads Committee, I would like to set up a whole system of green lanes, a circular route preferably around the parish. I've already got a couple in mind which link us up with the Georgetown green lanes, and we could get cyclists, people with prams, etc., all the way into Georgetown. I think that is something that we can achieve relatively simply and easily. We'll need a lot of road signs, but we have to work with the budget that we are given. And, you know, we have a rate. We can't charge extra on the rates. That's against the law. So we have to work within our budget. But yes, I would like to achieve that in my first year, a series of green lanes. During lockdown, the walkers of this island were absolutely everywhere, cyclists everywhere during lockdown, and I think we should carry that on. Exercise is very important for all of us, not only our mental health, but our health in general. So green lanes, Bruce. The other two in our first...
Thank you. Sarah.
Okay, there are two very urgent issues that I would like to address, and may well take a substantial period of time. So there's curbside recycling, and I'm very concerned. I'm very much in favour of us all knowing our carbon footprint and reducing it, but I'm not convinced that recycling does that. There's not enough transparency on it, and I know that we've just commissioned a new curbside recycling contract, which I think is more expensive and probably cause a lot of wear and damage on our roads, with lorries going up multiple times. Anyway, so I'd like to look at the curbside recycling. I understand the roof. The roof of the parish hall needs looking at and sorting, and I think that we need to be thinking all sorts of wider possibilities. So it could turn into, sorry.
Unfortunately, a minute doesn't give a lot of time for three items, but that's what we decided before. Is there another question, please? The lady at the back, up by the window, Bernard, please.
feel a bit nervous. Polly Ashton Barnett. Just back to the population question. As we can see from the demographic in this room, we are very top-heavy in terms of age. How are we going to encourage our young, well-educated, professional students that we've sent away and paid for and been taxed on, by the way, to come back to the island, to be able to have families, live and support the older generation, which I will be moving into relatively soon myself. Thank you.
Sarah.
Yeah, it's a very good question. So thank you, Polly. And the thing is that it costs. It's housing. Is the housing? I think is the issue, isn't it? Really. In my opening speech, I made reference to shared equity schemes, where and it's been very successful in Trinity, and it would be good, to be able to, to offer that sort of a scheme. I think it's really, really important to be getting our young professional, highly skilled young families back into the island, and I think we need to be thinking innovatively around, getting these people onto the property ladder. And the shared equity scheme is one tried and tested route. I'm sure there are many others, but that's what I'd be offering.
Thank you.
I visited a house the other day with a lady very much like yourself, 3 graduates, 1 PhD and 2 masters, both having to leave the island because they could not start out on their own. It absolutely horrified me, and I agree with Sarah. States loan housing, basically in my day, meant that you were improving the property portfolio of the individuals that bought the house. Why aren't the starter homes all over the island that we build, why aren't they kept within that? And that's the way to do it, equity sharing. The state pays a portion of the mortgage off and gives the young individuals a lot easier mortgage payments, and then they arrange it between themselves about how that equity is then released. I completely concur.
Sarah. Oh, no, beg your pardon, it's done.
There's no question.
Another question. I think I saw a hand, gentleman in the green shirt.
Good evening. We've heard an earlier reference to making the best use of resources in the parish. Would both candidates continue to support the Battle of Flowers Association, and in particular allow them to continue to use the parish shed at no cost to it?
You want me to answer that one? How do I say yes really, really positively? As a Connétable, and let's be aware of this gentleman on my left-hand side, ex-chairman of the Battle of Flowers, and I took over for him driving duties from John as well, by the way. Yes, they are the most wonderful community. It's like walking into an art gallery stroke welding workshop stroke chippy shed with all the incredible skills on offer, mostly done, some of them done by professionals for free. Yes, I would support the Battle of Flowers. They do a wonderful job with the young people, with the junior float. I would support them 100%.
Thank you. Sarah.
The parish resources, having looked at the parish accounts, they're very healthy. I see no reason why you would have to rent out the parish shed to the Battle of Flowers Association. Yes, completely agree. The central funding from the government is being reduced year on year, and I know it's a big part of parish life and island life, and it's a tradition that we must continue. So yes, I'm supportive.
A further question. Sir Philip Wallace.
What do the candidates feel is the most important personal quality that a Connétable should have, and do they have it?
Sarah.
I think it's really important to be able to listen, and listen to many different sides of an issue, to be able to work through and find solutions. And yes, I have gained through my life and professional training that ability to listen, which I think will be invaluable.
Thank you. Mark.
I think the quality that I bring to the role of Connétable, well, two, highly practical person, but the most important is a people person. I think you need to be welcoming. You need to acknowledge each and every person that you meet. It makes them feel valued. It makes them feel like your presence is not an overawing thing to be part of. I think a people person is very, very important. Being polite at all times to everyone. Being polite to even people who aren't particularly polite back to you. I think it's a people person above all else.
Thank you. Are there more questions? Deputy Labby.
One of the candidates said that they saw that the deputy's role in the new system would be divorced from the parish. So I'd like the candidates to tell us how they would envisage working with the deputies of the parish.
I believe that's me.
Yeah.
I think we're on the doorstep. I have to be honest. The new electoral system has not been very popular, but I think, to be fair, we should have a go and see what it's like. I think we suck it and see, as they say. But we've now got 3 deputies, and we can take those along with us to all our endeavours with all the various ministers. If we're going to have any more power than that, if, for example, I was Connétable and you were the deputy, Carolyn, it's just 2 of us, would it not? But now we're going to have 3. Divorce, that's nonsense. In fact, I think we're more engaged with our political side than we ever have been.
Thank you. Sarah.
I think it works quite well, actually. The deputies do have a wider constituency, and the Connétable has more of a relationship, more personal relationship with the individual parishioners. So I think it works. I think it works really well. So the detail, working together, and then within the chamber, the deputies working more on a states-wide level, taking things forward. So the Connétable works at the parish level with the deputies, working detail up with them, and then all working into the States Assembly, taking things forward. I think it works well.
Thank you. I think I saw a gentleman at the back with a green top.
Thank you. Good evening. Could the candidates please, notwithstanding the average age that I've learnt in this room this evening, their views on the assisted dying legislation that's been put forward?
Is that me?
Yes, you first, Sarah.
It's a very emotive subject, and there's been a lot of work done, and an in principle approval back in the back end of last year, which was taken forward on the back end of some work with the public. Trying to think thank you, Citizens Assembly. And there's more work to be done. There was a public consultation in March, and there's to be another public consultation with the government idea of what it might look like in July, I think. So there's a long way to go. And it is very emotive. But there will be another vote at the back end of this year. And I would need to know how my parishioners felt about it.
Thank you. Mark.
I'm going to be very honest and actually tell you what I feel. I'm appalled that people have to travel halfway across the world to have this happen to them. They're taken away from their families, they're taken away from their loved ones. I don't believe for 1 minute that Jersey should be isolated in this matter. I think the whole of Europe should allow this to happen at home, not to have to take people. Do you remember that lovely song, the Hollies said, they shoot horses, don't they? We're the only species that makes ourselves suffer at the end of our lives. Let's have it Europe-wide.
Another question, please.
Yes, good evening, thank you. We've heard already this evening about how some middle-income earners feel a bit squeezed under the current tax system. One area that I'd be interested to hear is other ideas for raising taxation other than through income tax. And particularly, one particular thought I've got is a possible change of use tax. When I went to Guernsey recently, I noticed in the last 23 years, hardly any hotels have disappeared in Guernsey, whereas we've lost so many facilities over here. And naturally, there seems to be a massive uplift in value of something where you can build multi-million-pound apartments in place of a hotel. That's one example, but I'd be very interested to know, not a broad capital gains tax, but a more narrowly focused change of use tax, because it seems to me that there's certain sections of the community in Jersey that are making huge amounts of money and paying very little tax, whereas middle-income earners are being squeezed. I'd like your thoughts.
Mark,
I agree with you. It seems very odd to me that they had a complete lockdown in Guernsey, and yet their hospitality industry seems to be a lot healthier than ours. We're losing hotels all the time. The Mayfair's gone. The Apollo's on its way out. The Revere is on the list. I can't believe the Savoy. It's very upsetting to see these beautiful places, and again, the places that where we've been for lunches and we've enjoyed great social events, we're losing them one after the other after the other. I think this may be a form in which we can actually stop that from happening.
Thank you. Sarah?
Cost of living crisis again, and middle-income earners will be pushed and squeezed. And yes, we do need to start thinking about other ways of shifting the burden to those that can afford to pay a little bit more.
Another question. The gentleman in the blue down in the middle, Bernard, please.
They've got matching jumpers.
Much is made of us being in a climate emergency. I'm equally concerned that we're in an enormous financial emergency in the island. We're heading into an absolutely appalling financial abyss, and thankfully I'm not going to be old enough to see how we sort it out. What I would really like to know is your views, either of you, when you get to the States, as to what your thoughts are going to be about the new hospital.
Sarah, that's you first.
Well, starting with the financial emergency, I agree with you that there's a problem in the government of Jersey in that got £200 million additional expenditure in the last 2 years, and that the expenditure exceeds the income, and so that is a problem. That's a massive problem. We do need a new hospital. I used to work in health and community services, and that is something that needs to happen. We've got ourselves into a place now where we've got the Environment Minister's approved the hospital, 800 million, that'll be £1 billion hospital. And yet the planning department have rejected it. So there is more work to be done, and there hasn't been enough sustainability.
How many more years? How many more fiascos? Should we name them? The airports, the cavern, the police station. How many more have we got to do? How many more fiascos are we going to have to put up with? They're throwing away our money. It's as simple as that. And usually on UK consultants, and where are they paying their tax, ladies and gentlemen? They're not paying it here, are they? No, they're not. And this has got to stop. We've got people leaving the island. We've got people outsourcing the work to India instead of working here. We've got to stop from the top down this nonsense of these massive... why didn't we let the French build it? It was half that price. Why did we let that contract go?
Thank you. Are there any more questions? Well, the candidates did say the meeting they thought would last about an hour. We're a couple of minutes short. If anybody would like to ask a final question.
Not wanting to be greedy and ask a second question, but I will. Do either of you believe that if we want to go forward, you've got to have someone that's going to be out there to crack the whip and chase the animals in? Are you the person that's actually going to be able to lead from the front and get the jobs done rather than just wait around for someone else to do it?
Good man. Oh, yes. I've been a highly practical person all my life. Ted, you're a farmer. You know we are all the most practical people that you could possibly imagine. And I'm honoured to say that I'm, sadly, an ex-member of that industry. Yes, I will lead from the front. We've got a practical team. Jacques and David down at the shed there. We need to make sure that they're fully occupied. They have to do all sorts of things for us, and they do a great job, and they keep everything clean. But I want to make sure that everybody involved in the parish knows where to come if they need to talk to somebody about the issues they have. If there's an issue with the honorary police, if there's an issue with the roads, they need somebody they know they can trust and they can go to with their issues, and that will be strong enough to deal with them.
Thank you. Sarah.
I believe as a leader that you use your resources efficiently and effectively. You play people to their strengths, and so that's what I will do. I deliver. So if you think about the three things I've done for the parish in an honorary capacity, they have been implemented. They have been done. They have been implemented. So anything I do is implemented and done.
No, Mark, I'm sorry, I've got to try and keep this.
I deliver too.
I'll take one final question, please.
Wait a minute, can't my grandson ask the question?
No. How do you, as Connétable, want to... for the preschool children, how do you plan to enhance the parish and make it better and more... what am I trying to say? Accessible, thank you, sorry, sleep deprived, for the young children of Grouville?
Before the candidates answer, that is of course Mark's daughter, and before I realised I called her to ask the question. There's no reason why she can't answer the question, but I think it's fair that everybody's aware that the question came from Mark's daughter. Not quite sure who's the next. Is that you to answer, Mark? I think next, is it?
In my manifesto, my wife is a family day carer, a childminder, and as I said before, the people of the east of the island have so little sports facilities. It's not just preschool play areas. We're losing Fort Regent soft play area, for example. So where are they going to go? They're spending so many carbon miles going to these play areas to keep the children amused. And indeed, how many of your kids that you're having to take to sports facilities, most of which are in the west of the island? One of my parents said they're doing 900 miles a month just taking one of their children to rugby practice. Why haven't we got any sport facilities in this end of the island? We've got FP Fields, which is a kind of a closed shop. We might have access to the Rockier School, I heard recently. That would be wonderful. But, you know, they turned down Mr. Perjar's application for his cricket facility in St Martin's. That would have been nice, wouldn't it? But we need more facilities in the east of the island.
So, I think we're talking about preschool accessibility to the parish. I think it's really important that we've got more community access to parish buildings for mothers and children to socialise, and we've got a vast array of skills in this parish, a vast array of skills. Let's start using them to bring together mothers or fathers and parents with young children, and of any kind. It doesn't have to be, you know, the kind of the traditional, you know, preschool. I mean, I came here to whenever I had babies, mother and toddler groups. But there are lots of possibilities. We need to come together, use the skills that are in the parish, to come together and do whatever it is that the parishioners and parents want to do.
Thank you. As I said before, the candidates agreed that the meeting would last about an hour. If my maths serves me correctly, we have probably had well over 20 questions. When there's multiple candidates, it's quite neat. Well, it's never easy, but when there's just two, it's quite an ordeal for both of them, and I'm sure you'll agree with me that they've both done extremely well. You'll all be here because you're keen voters, but I hope you encourage others to come out and vote as well. This election is very different with regard to the deputies. We don't often have contested constables elections, but particularly the first, when there's a new constable coming forward, it's really a very healthy thing to do. Please do get out and encourage your neighbours, friends to come up and vote. They're both working really hard. Reward that hard work by encouraging people to vote. I'm sure, well, you'll know they're available if you have further questions to ask of them. Let's see if we can get Grouville to be the district with the highest turnout. So do it. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much for coming.